Welcome to episode 216 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Tyson Robertson. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Joined here today by Tyson Robertson. Tyson, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, man. This should be fun.
It will be. It always is, every single time. You still train many people in real life, which is becoming more and more rare, especially in the online world these days. What is your schedule like? Because I don't think enough people understand the difficulty of training people. And it's one thing to say I work 40 hours a week, and it's another thing to say I train 40 sessions or 35 sessions a week. Like, very different things. What does a day look like for you?
Yeah, it's funny because you get into like some of the certifications, and one of their selling aspects is that you can make your own schedule. And while that is somewhat true, not really, because you have to train people when they're available. So, I mean, the schedule can switch up at any time, and you're kind of at the mercy of your clients. And I guess it kind of depends on where you're at as far as your business goes. But I'm training. When I first started, I would train 6 days a week. I try and keep one day for myself to rest, but it's anywhere from 5 to 6 in the morning. Sometimes you have some little breaks in the middle of the day, get your snacks in, maybe rest, maybe get your own workouts in for the mental health, and then train at night too. So it varies. It's different every single week. If I want to take a vacation or something like that, I can plan that out with my clients. And once you build that trust, it helps, but it's up and down and all around pretty much.
Yeah. And a vacation means that you don't get vacation pay. It's vacations cost twice as much because you are paying for the vacation plus also not working and continuing to earn income. So yeah, glamorous life if you view it that way, for sure. But yeah, not always all it's cracked up to be. Oh, I got to wear shorts and go to the gym all day. Like, yeah, but there's trade-offs to everything, right?
For sure. And I think that's where so just to kind of give you a brief like background of what I do. So I do train people in person. I run about 25 to 35 sessions a week, just depending. There's always people in and out and all around. And then I help teach anatomy class for Show Up Fitness, which is online mentorship for new trainers. So we're trying to get them up and going and teach them programming, anatomy, some business skills to help them with their business. Because I don't know if you ever heard of the statistic, but roughly, I mean, I don't think it's been quantified, but roughly 85-90% of trainers quit in the first year. That's a pretty bad statistic if you think about it when you're thinking about getting into a new industry. So I try and help with that. So I'm training, 25, 35. I run my class every week, and then I also do a little bit of mentorship on the side, just trying to get that one-on-one help because we run group classes on Zoom, but the one-on-one helps people, get their questions answered. Any type of case examples that they have someone with an injury, how they should maybe network with physical therapists and stuff like that. And it should try and create an environment where, trainers can succeed. So I'm not just training, clients and trying to get people strong, get people out of pain, live better lives, but also help new trainers. So it's kind of a juggling act right now. I've only been in the industry for about 3 years, so it's a lot of fastballs, curveballs coming at me, but I wouldn't pick anything else. This is what I love to do, and I think a movement practice is huge when it comes to the mental health. It's helped me out so many times. I'm sure you could probably relate to that.
Yeah, I definitely can, and I think that literally anyone who exercises for any prolonged period of time could also attest to that, right? It's a gigantic part of why we do what we do, and it's not always like the main part or the selling part, but oftentimes it is the most important part, especially training people in person. As you go on in your career and you have clients that are with you for years and years, and like I know some older trainers who have had clients with them for 20 years. And like, these, you'd think like, okay, this person's had a personal trainer for 20 years. They must be like, Mr. Olympia stage. Like, this must be the most jacked person ever. And they're not. They're like a regular person, and they're in good shape, and they're healthy, and they look good, and they feel good, and all that stuff. But a lot of it becomes about like the mental health. They just keep going because they have to keep going because it's part of what they do and who they are. And it makes them feel and perform good in the rest of their life outside of the gym. They're not necessarily trying to be some world-class bodybuilder. They're trying to be a regular, healthy, functioning person who can just enjoy their life. And that is perhaps the most important part, but like it sounds nice when you realize it, but it's not really. It's like it's not as sexy as like get a six pack in 6 weeks. Like that's the thing that people want and will bring people in, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but really what makes people stay is the lifestyle aspect of this and sticking to the game for a long time.
Yeah.
I do want to start with a couple things and mostly around your story and how you got into this, and that'll branch us into everywhere else that we need to get to here because you teach a lot of anatomy. Anatomy is extremely complicated, kind of, and also in a way like extremely useless to the average person, and that's an overstatement for sure. But like most clients are not taking anatomy courses and like have to understand all the biomechanics of the body and all the insertion and attachment points and all this stuff. But trainers definitely do. But since we're talking to like more regular people here, we'll kind of get into how they can understand some basics and understand some of the like how to spot things that make sense and how to spot things that don't make sense based on some pretty basic anatomy, and then go from there. So I'll shut up now. But you mentioned that getting out of pain is a big thing for you, and getting into the industry a little bit later in life. So can you tell me a little bit about your story and kind of your entry? You were telling me about before we hit record, but expand on it here.
Yeah. So graduated college, got into a field of study that, kind of led me down a path where I wasn't really fulfilled. And so worked in food science laboratories up until I was about 38. And that's when I transitioned into personal training. But when I was 28, I was probably about 20, 30 pounds overweight. And I was like, well, I'll do what I always did to get in shape. I'll just go play basketball. Well, that was a mistake because the second time I was in the gym, went to make a cut and pop, there goes my Achilles. So now we're at square one when it comes to like trying to get in shape. I ended up gaining probably another like 30 or 40 pounds over the course of the surgery and just kind of being like in a
Mm-hmm.
depressive state, not being able to work for like 2 or 3 months. At the time, had a 1.5-year-old son. My daughter, or my wife, was 8 months pregnant. So went through a lot of turmoil at that time, a lot of emotional, a lot of financial struggle at that time, and that always stuck with me. Coming out of that, went back to work, was still unfulfilled in my career, wasn't my passion, but then I was dealing with pain every day because I developed a tendinopathy in the opposite side, the other ankle, because I was compensating. And so, long story short, 4 or 5 years of pain, dealing with it every single day, and I finally found a physical therapist that could help me out, and uh, got out of pain. I was like, okay, like if I can actually, because this is a long time. 5 years is a long time to be in pain. I know a lot of people struggle with pain, but at that point,
Mm-hmm.
you start to almost give up. Like, okay, I'm just gonna have to live with this. So finally found a physical therapist that could help me out. Started developing some movement practices. Got into yoga. Started some different styles of strength training. Before I was just kind of a bro lifter, just going and lift as hard as I could. I was a former athlete, so you just go in there, lift as hard as you can, crawl out of the gym. That was a good workout. And that just doesn't last very long. That starts to build up over time. And so I just kind of changed my mindset. I got a kettlebell, started training at home. Kids were young and at the house, so wife didn't really want me to go to the gym. So it just started to develop all these different aspects to my own training. And finally, I got out of pain, started to move better, and started to get back to where I felt good again. And that was by the time I was about 36, 37. And I was like, okay, like I would love to be able to help someone else do this because I know there's other people that deal with, former, like sports injuries or injury from high school and they just never got it fixed and they've been dealing with decades or
Mm-hmm.
for decades. And it can just be a really frustrating thing. And I can relate to that. So I had the opportunity to move to a different area, sell our place with the funds, got into getting a certification for training, and then the rest is history. I got hooked up with Shield Fitness, which helps teach trainers how to get started, and from there just went all in and just kind of immersed myself in it, trying to help people getting the reps in, getting those 10,000 hours, and helping people out. And at the Y, it was nice because the training population was mostly elderly people, and that's a really regressed form of training. It's not like you're training professional athletes, so you have to really regress it and be safe with your people. And I could relate to that because I was someone who had to regress and start from square one too. So just getting those reps in, working through it, and it's really opened my eyes to how people struggle with pain. So that's kind of been my my focus is just trying to get people out of pain. Then once you get past the pain, then you get strong, and then the ceiling just gets so much higher.
Right. What were some of the things then that you did that were like wrong in hindsight. They were wrong or didn't help you, let's say, trying to get out of pain? Because there's got to be a bunch of people listening who are like, yeah, I've got this. Maybe it's not your Achilles, but it's your elbow, it's your ankle, it's your knee, it's your shoulder, whatever it is, and you're doing some stuff. And we can talk about like in general principles, but what were some of the things that you were doing that like didn't work? And then we'll go into some of the things you did that actually did help you.
Yeah, so that's funny because I did it all, and it's kind of
Mhm.
embarrassing looking back. I was like, oh, I actually tried to do, like, what was that gonna do? But ice was a big thing, like constantly icing, and that's kind of like a temporary pain relief, but it didn't help the root cause, right? I did certain things where I like wrap my ankle in cellophane just to like warm it up because heat would sometimes help. I felt like it would help the movement of it. So random stuff like that. I would always um like I had this like roller that I would constantly massage it and that would provide a little bit of temporary relief. But none of that stuff ever worked. And um eventually you just start thinking about, well, should I just go get on a bunch of pain meds and just deal with it that way? And luckily I never went down that route, but I'm sure some people, probably do succumb to that. And there's like, forget it. I'm just going to take pain meds to get out of this pain. Um, but yeah, just ice, massage. But I never developed a movement practice. And I think that was the thing that was missing until I found out that, you know, I'm going to have to put some work in and train it and get strong. It's not going to get any better.
Right. I think to sum that up, it's a lot of like passive stuff. And I think this is super common. Like it's a pretty natural way of wanting to do things because you think like, okay, yeah, if I ice it, if I take a pill, if I do this, if I do this roller, if I use this machine, like people say it helps. And immediately it all does help for the most part. Like you feel something. It doesn't do absolutely nothing, but it doesn't provide any lasting relief. Like if the pain comes back, an hour later or, half an hour later or the next day or whatever it is, it all helps a little bit. And so it's easy to fall into the trap of like, okay, well, this was good. So let me just keep doing this. But then it comes to a point where it's like, hey, I've been doing this for 6 months and like, I still have to keep doing this. Like, I don't want to have to ice my ankle, wrap it in cellophane, do this, roll this, do this thing, like do this, 97-step routine just so that I can go for a walk. Like this, this can't be life. You know what I mean? There's got to be more to it. And so I think you nailed it with like nailing a movement practice, but that also doesn't mean like just go back and play basketball. Like that's not necessarily, that could be part of your movement practice eventually, but that's not how you heal an injury. So how did you learn then how to actually heal it and start like progressing your pain tolerance, tissue tolerance, and ability to move from there?
Yeah. So one thing that really opened my eyes was it's called Grassman technique. It's
Mhm.
and you probably heard of Grassman technique, but it's based. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it. It's like these like almost like butter knives, and it's kind of like a massage with these butter knives. You kind of work in the fascia and the fascial lines, stuff like that. But anyway, the Achilles tendon, it's uh, it's a tendon, so it doesn't get a whole lot of blood to the area. Muscles and bones, a lot more blood to the area. They heal a lot faster. But the Achilles doesn't get a lot of blood to it. So when I got into this physical therapist, did a lot of that Grassman technique, and I just noticed that when he was done with that, it felt so much better. And we would tape it, and then he would give me some eccentric lifts to do. An eccentric lift is basically when the muscle lengthens. So I'd get on a step, do some eccentrics, maybe some isometric holds where I'm just holding, and then slowly but surely just adding that in, and this isn't just like I'm doing this once a day. Like I'm performing these things like multiple times, like every couple hours. So you have to really stick with it and be dedicated to the craft. And just over time, I'd had enough of doing all the other miscellaneous things that weren't really helping. And at that time too, I kind of came across a few professionals in the industry, therapists and trainers that dealt with this sort of thing and trying to get some information from them and starting implementing their tactics too. And then just diving in head first and just performing those eccentric, performing those isometrics. And over time, I just noticed like the pain started to subside a little bit more, a little bit more, and then I got into yoga, trying to work on mobility, and having a mobility practice absolutely changed my life. And then, like I said, with the kettlebells, getting into kettlebells just helped too because I wasn't loading quite as heavy, and I felt like I was moving a little more freely, not under so much load. Like I'm not going in there trying to squat 400 pounds. I'm just trying to move good under a little bit of load. And basically, I just started to build a little bit of foundation and slowly got out of pain. And then, man, once my eyes opened up to that, and then now I can lift heavy again, like it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world for me now. And I know that I can help other people do that. And, I'm not going to go out of my scope and, I'm not going to tell people they're injured or whatnot, but at least I know that I can get them to a spot or get
Mhm.
them to a trusted professional that can help them with that.
The most underrated thing I think that you just mentioned there is the volume and intensity of which that you do the rehab exercises. So common. People will say like, "Oh, I did my physio exercises. Like I did them once a week. I did my little calf raises. The physio said do 10 reps, 3 sets, and I did it." And it's like, okay, but just like you just did it once. Like you think that that's gonna like you tore your thing. You think that's gonna help you? Like when you think about it logically, you're like, hey, this is not like the input doesn't match what we're trying to do. We're trying to repair a part of your body. Like 10 little calf raises is not going to rebuild that, or the equivalent for do this little shoulder thing or whatever. Lots like there was one a mentor of mine, a teacher who told me like when you're doing rehab exercises, like you basically prescribe like tell the patient to do like 1,000. Like they won't do 1,000. They don't necessarily need to do 1,000, but like the point is do a lot of them. Like do as much as you can handle, and that's what's gonna help it because you're trying to change tissues, and so doing it just
Mhm.
a little bit, like once a week, 3 times is not like it's just not enough. And so when you're doing them multiple times a day and every single day, and then at a gradually increasing intensity, which sounds a heck of a lot like regular training, uh, that's when you'll actually start to heal yourself. But that's like hugely, hugely underrated, I think, and underutilized.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes you just don't understand what it takes. And even now, like I'll notice if I generally don't, but if I find myself taking some time off, it can come back. Like it's something
Sure.
that I have to work with, consistently and just keep it going. So that's why I just like to promote it to my clients. I'm like, just think of this as a lifestyle. Like we don't necessarily have an end goal. There's always ways you can scale and get better. But think of it as like this is like your practice. This is how you're going to keep yourself more resilient for anything that happens in the future too.
Yeah, especially when you've had any type of like major traumatic injury or if there was a surgery involved, there's like very often going to be some just like lifelong lingering effects. Like I've had a ton of knee injuries and I had a pretty major knee surgery on one of my knees, and like it's fine. Like it doesn't prevent me from doing anything, but I got to pay attention to it. And like if I didn't train for like a couple months, it would start to bother me. Like things are in there. There's scar tissue. There's a couple screws in there. Like there's stuff that happened that's like, hey, if you just completely ignore this, it's going to be a problem. But if you just do a little bit of daily maintenance, similar to brushing your teeth, like it's going to be fine, right? And so that's if you've had any major injuries, like people need to, unfortunately, like you need to accept that. If you just like rolled your ankle once, that wasn't that big a deal, it didn't tear anything, you probably won't have that issue, or you shouldn't necessarily have that issue. But traumatic injuries for sure.
And that's a beautiful thing about strength training is that once you put in all of that work, the maintenance side of it really isn't as time consuming as you might think. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where like people coming in to starting a new exercise program, they think they're just going to have to crush constantly every day for long periods of time. And while those first couple of weeks might be hard to kind of break the doors down and get into a routine and like get those results that you're looking for, once you can hit a certain spot and you're happy with where you're at, maintenance really doesn't take a whole lot of time. So I was trying to encourage my clients too, is like if you get to a point where you feel like you're feeling good, like you may not have to put this much intensity and volume into it. But the funny thing is once they do get to a certain point, they tend to want more. They catch the bug, right? And they want to continue with it and keep breaking those glass ceilings.
Yeah, very, very true. Maintenance is certainly much easier than trying to build up or trying to lose weight. Same thing in the reverse. It's way harder to lose weight than it is to maintain weight once you got it. Um, but but then typically you just want more, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing. But then to get more, you gotta push more, and that's fine as well. Nothing wrong with that. So what does some of your training look like now? I don't know if you have like any very specific training goals if you're training for something, but what does like a typical training session for yourself look like right now?
Well, I'm lucky because I'm in the gym all the time, so I can get away with not necessarily having like a real rigid program.
Hmm.
So for me, probably twice a week, I'm lifting pretty heavy. I'm in like a 3 to 5 rep range. I'm doing all movement patterns, hip hinge, like a trap bar deadlift. I'm doing heavy barbell back squats or hack squats, something like that. upper body, the basics, push, pull, heavy bench press or dumbbell bench, machines. I'm down with machines. And other than that, other than like the 2 heavy days, on the other days, I'll do a little more accessory work. I'll try and throw in some sprints. I'll play basketball, and then I'll work in the kettlebells just to try and grease the groove and keep the joints feeling good. And right now, I really don't have any specific goals, but I'm just trying to stay strong in all movement patterns. And I will say I think one thing that I do need to work on, and that's where basketball comes in, is probably the cardio aspect of it. So I know that cardio can, increase overall health, and my cardio is not bad, but it's something that I could add in because I just prefer to lift weights. I prefer to
Sure.
lift heavy, and I feel like it's very efficient. And sometimes, some days I'm only lifting, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day because I'm at that maintenance level. But there's days where I want to push it and I'll go in and I'll hit it really hard. But it's just depends on how I feel that day. Really, I don't have anything set in stone right now.
And will you do, or do you still do yoga, or do you do anything that's like very only mobility dedicated, or do you kind of just mix that in with your strength training, as in like I train hard and heavy through a full range of motion, and that is mobility work because like it kind of is.
Yeah.
Like how do you organize that for yourself?
Yeah, so a little bit of both, but when I'm home is generally when I do my yoga. Like if I'm doing yard work or playing with kids, that's where I'm just getting down into a random, like a certain position and just working full range of motion. So it's pretty much every day because I just noticed that it's almost like recuperative. Like it adds deposits into the bank where it actually gives me energy. So if I'm feeling good, I'm moving good after I do my mobility, that helps me be more like attentive as a dad, get more stuff done at home because it's not taxing. It's like I said, it's more restorative in that aspect. So a lot of the mobility stuff I'll just do at home when I'm done with my day, just to kind of give me that extra little boost of energy to get through the rest of the day. But when I'm strength training, like intra sets, I'm always working on different mobility drills for me. Yeah. And full range
What
of
what
motion. I'm big on full range of motion.
Oh, of course. What do you mean by having mobility sets like in between your regular sets? Like I think I know what you
Yeah.
mean, but
So
explain it.
Yeah, so like say I'm lifting heavy and I'll generally try and take like 90 seconds to 180 seconds of rest in between sets. I'll drop down and get into like a 90-90 or a couch stretch, or I'll work some open book, closed book, and just work on while during that 90 to 180 seconds, whatever, I'm trying to catch my breath. I'm breathing. I'm trying to be as efficient as possible because I want to lower my heart rate so that when I get back into the lift, I'm pushing as much type twos as possible. But during that time, I'm just working on full range of motion on whatever joint, whether it be, the thoracic mobility, hip mobility, working the knees into flexion extension, and just working that just constantly, like, because what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to be as efficient as possible when I lift so that I don't have to worry about it outside the gym. It's like when I'm lifting, like that's my time to really focus in, try and get into like kind of like a flow state, I guess you could say, and just be as efficient as possible. Because now that I know how to train better, I want to go all in. I want to make it work for me the best I
I mean, you don't like scroll TikTok or anything during your rest. You just like
can.
actually do something productive.
It's always pulling you in that direction. So I can't say that I don't get stuck in that trap, but I try my best to get in
Yeah,
get in that mobility and really really focus on the sets. I notice my worst workouts though are when I get stuck on the phone and I'm
for
scrolling
sure.
and my mind kind of gets out of focus.
Me too. It's definitely the mental distraction where it's like if there was something going on, if I'm waiting for a text message or a phone call or an email to come in, or I'm messaging something a client, or anything like that, anything that's like mentally just distracting me during the session makes the whole session worse. And that's when I know that like, okay, I'm not attempting any like back squat PRs in this session. Like I'm not checked in enough to this session to be like real. Oh, train hard and whatever, but we're not doing anything that's gonna like really push the envelope here because I'm just mentally not checked into this session. And that these are few and far between. Most of the time, I'll be able to get my phone on do not disturb for that like 45 minutes to an hour and a bit just to train and get in there and get out. But I think the important thing to highlight there really is that your rest times can be used more productively than just catching your breath. Like you can do a thoracic mobility, a shoulder mobility, a little hip thing, whether it's related to the workout of that day or not, just to make your time a little bit more efficient. Like it's not taking away your ability to recover and recuperate for the next set. And this is like an easy way for people to just add in some mobility work that's going to greatly benefit them without having to necessarily add time, because that's always the biggest thing. I barely have time to get to the gym 3 days a week. I don't have 45 minutes a day extra to do some mobility and some stretches and some mobilizations. Well, you don't need, first of all, you don't need that much time, and second, you can just squeeze it into your regular workouts, and it doesn't even take any more time. It just makes you you just need to be paying a little bit more attention and a little bit more focused on it, and you'll get it done.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
What are now some of the let's start to talk about anatomy. And so anatomy is a very complex thing, and understanding it is not required. Understanding it at a deep level is not required if you're just a regular person, if you're not a trainer. But what are some things, as in mistakes, that you see clients in the gym making, or through like the clients that you guys have come through Show Up Fitness, and like the trainers who are working with clients? What are some of their biggest like mistakes that they're making, if you can think of any, that are kind of like related to maybe poor exercise selection, or just a gross misunderstanding of anatomy and the way the body works? And I don't know if that makes sense, and I can help give you some examples, but if there's any things that come to mind, let me know, and let's dig into them.
I guess the first place that I always look is the shoulder, because I think a lot of people have shoulder issues, and I think they just don't know how to prescribe the right exercises to get their shoulder in a range of motion that's going to work for them. I've seen so many people with rotator cuff issues, and it's not necessarily that they're always injured. It just could be a poor movement pattern, a little bit of pain. Like there's been so many times, even with myself, I do like a kettlebell move and the shoulder's kind of hurting the next day. Just throw in
Mhm.
some mobility drills, kind of wake everything up, activate everything, and then get back into it. And you can hit the ground running when it comes to your strength training. But as far as like the bad thing about that is when you have someone who isn't very confident in what they're doing and they do have shoulder pain, they'll just completely scrap the whole thing. And that's what we don't want, is to scrap the whole thing. You want to try and find whatever that dose is to add those deposits to the bank so that the next time you can lift and lift heavy. I just noticed a lot with shoulders. So many people with shoulder issue, and they just want to kind of give up, or they just want to go straight to the scalpel and the knife. And I'm always telling people, hold on, let's talk first. Let's see what we're doing. Run a couple tests, see how they feel. Run a couple mobility drills with some bands, and then retest. And if they're good to go, then their eyes open up and like, oh man, like I didn't even think I could do that today. But it's like, well, the body is telling you something with the pain. It doesn't necessarily mean you're injured, but it's trying to warn you that something is up. So let's try a few things. And then if that at that point, if they have too much pain and not able to do it, understanding anatomy and then networking with like a physical therapist, this helps so much, because I can find someone that I trust that I can send them to. And then that's like the client care aspect of it. Like I'm trying to get the best care for this person as possible. If I can't provide that as a trainer, because I didn't go through school to become a physical therapist, but I can talk that language with a physical therapist, and then I can send them to the therapist when they're done with that, or in between, if they're still training with me while they're seeing a physical therapist, they can come back to me. I can speak that language with the therapist, and we can do the things that they want. And I know that they have the right menu of exercises for them, so they can get out of that pain and just and then move forward. So as far as like talking with the clients, bring up anatomy sometimes. I always try and joke and see what they do. A lot of times their eyes just glaze over and they're like, whatever, dude. Like I don't want to talk about any of that right now. But then again, sometimes they'll be interested, like, oh yeah, what are the quads again? There's four, right? I'm like, yeah. What are they? Just for discussion. You're spending 45 minutes to an hour with this person, so finding those things that they like to talk about is good too. Sometimes it's anatomy, but most of the time it's not.
Right. The way that I think of it sometimes is that, like, I see this with a lot of newer trainers, where they'll remember like a Rolodex of exercises in their head, but not necessarily connect those exercises uh, to a movement pattern, or understand why it's working the muscle that they think it's working. They'll just think like, okay, this equals quads, this equals shoulders, this equals biceps. And like, largely it's true, but then what happens when that exercise is unavailable because a client is injured? They can't use the handle for some reason because I don't know, their wrist hurts, so they have to use a different grip, something like that. Or that machine is not available at that gym. Like, what happens, right? And so this is where we have to understand as trainers, understand the anatomy, so that you can change things on the fly to still get the intended results from the exercises that you want to. Because there's no, like, your body doesn't care about the named exercise that you do. It cares about like the force that's applied to it. Like a bicep curl is great. Your body has no idea what a bicep curl is other than like your biceps are working. That's what it understands. And so if you can set it up or set something up to work the biceps, although it may be a different variation or type of exercise, then that's still going to be a good thing. I think where I want to get to is like some common things that I've seen, and I'll kind of like list some of them off, and then let you kind of riff on them. But this is the biggest one, and I've seen this like far too many times, and it annoys the shit out of me. People doing like, and it's just like poor exercise selection. I don't know where it comes from, but it's like things. The best example is this: doing like RDLs with like toes elevated and thinking that that is somehow like moving the hamstrings or like the glutes more, when I don't like, I know why people do it because it gives them a more sensation, but basic understanding of anatomy would tell you like, hey, that's not doing the thing that you think it's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hamstrings don't cross the ankle joints, so you're not getting more of a stretch on the hamstrings. They only cross the knee joints. So yeah, yep.
Yeah. Are there other ones like that that you think of that you've seen that you want to just kind of go over?
As far as like movements that people do that they think's doing something different than what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't have anything in particular, but when I see other people train, I'm always noticing that intensity level is usually never high enough. That's one thing. It seems like a lot of times people are going in there and they're just kind of checking the box, like I'm a good person, I'm a good boy, I'm a good girl. I came in and I
Mhm.
did my workout today. And that intensity just doesn't hit a level that you need to create a stimulus that's going to create an adaptation or a good adaptation. It's not like going in there and lifting weights at a lower intensity is bad per se. I mean, it's better than nothing, but I see intensity level is usually never high enough, and that could be from fear of getting injured, maybe past injuries. It could be anything. Maybe they just don't know. But then again, like exercise selection is always something that seems to be lacking. They'll go in and they'll work like their isolation exercise, like their curls and their tricep extensions, and leg curls. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want the best bang for your buck, you need to put in those compound movements, those multi-joint movements that are going to create the biggest stimulus for your body. So it's basically just like the actual program that people are running, it lacks on intensity, and then the actual movements that you should be doing, they could be optimizing their program so much better if they knew to incorporate those compound lifts.
Which one of those two things, if you had to pick only one to fix, for like you could snap your fingers and just fix it, which would you fix for people?
I would probably I'd probably stick with compound movements. I would pick compound movements over everything else besides intensity, because at least you're getting those joints into better ranges of motion. You're working on your vertical pushes, your vertical pulls, horizontal push pulls, squats, hinges. Sometimes people just go in there just working their upper body and that's it. Well, it's like you have more meat on the lower half than you do on the upper, so you might want to think about working those muscles too. So I think working in those compound movements, if people can learn those, I think that just has such a great bang for your buck, because that kind of translates to human movement too. Like if you have to put some in the upper part of your kitchen or whatever, the highest cupboard, being able to push that overhead like a bicep curl is going to help you put that overhead. So I would focus on the compound movements over everything else.
Yeah, I think part of it is like, if we think about the psychology aspect of people going to the gym, like doing compound movements and training hard is, this will sound so stupid, but like it's difficult to do. And like you'd rather not do things that are difficult. You'd rather do things that are less difficult because that's human nature and that's very normal to do. But the thing to stop and understand is that you're also trying to get a result here. And the result is going to come from certain inputs, and it's typically not the thing that's like easiest or most comfortable or whatever like that. Training hard is not comfortable, and it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be painful, but it's not supposed to tickle either. And so the faster that you can kind of get over yourself with that, and then realize, okay, I got to maybe change some exercises that are like a little bit more difficult exercises. Like a squat is just generally more difficult than a leg extension. Both are good for the quads and both have a place in a program, and all that stuff. But like typically, and you can certainly take a leg extension like to failure and beyond, but it's still harder. It's still easier rather than a back squat. on average.
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
like, you think, well, which one is going to help give you more help overall, unless you're a bodybuilder, which that's not really who we're talking to here. And even then, um, you sticking to the compound lifts is gonna help for that reason, right? You're just
Yeah.
using more of you.
And I'd say too, like human nature is so up and down. Like we have our good days, we have our bad days. The great thing about the gym, it's so multifactorial. You can go in there and do so many different things. Like you can go into the gym and not even lift a weight and still get a great workout just by, going back to the mobility piece. So you can do that. But say there's a day where you might feel a little under the weather and you don't want to do the squats. Well, that's when you can throw in the leg extensions and stuff like that. So it's not like you have to do this or that. It's just, okay, what's your goals and what's going to get you closer to that goal? And if you want to get stronger and you want to be able to move better, I think those compound movements are going to be the ones that will get you there faster.
Right. And there's a time and a place for everything. There are days, like you just said, you're feeling under the weather, you have a lot on your mind. Like there's definitely a time and a place to do like bad, quote unquote, suboptimal workouts. Where it's like, hey, I just got in here, I got a little bit of a pump, I maybe got a little bit out of breath, I got a little bit sweaty, and I'm just going home today. I didn't necessarily get better, I didn't necessarily get stronger, but like I moved and improved my mental health. I'm in a better mood now, and that's phenomenal as well. But if you have goals of wanting to, lose weight, gain muscle, change your body, like that can't be every single day. Other like there is something else that's wrong in your life that needs to be addressed. You cannot just train like that every single time and then expect great results. You can train like that and just expect to feel nice. That'll work. But if you want to change your body, like there's got to be some more stuff in there. So that's probably where the biggest missing piece for a lot of people, right?
Yeah. And then I think training thinking about like as a trainer, you should understand kind of the aspects of the central nervous system. And sometimes your central nervous system can only take so much. You can only crush it so many times where that increases the risk of potential injury or just wearing
Mm-hmm.
yourself out to where you might start lacking sleep. And then it starts getting into all those other variables with nutrition and sleep and rest and recovery and all that stuff. But all that being said, I mean, you'd be surprised. I always try and tell my clients, I want you feeling better when you leave the gym than when you show up. And you'd be surprised sometimes, like the state in which they're in, where maybe they had a couple glasses of wine the night before, or a couple glasses of wine the night before they come and they're not feeling too good. Just that getting that first 10, 15 minutes in, and then they're back to normal. Sometimes it's like that, sometimes it's not. But I encourage people at least go in there, start moving, and then seeing how, like, check in with yourself, ask yourself the question, like, okay, do I feel like I can like step my game up today, or should I take a step back? And that's just getting in tune with your body and understanding your body more. But the more that you strength train and the more you get into a movement practice, the better you'll be at that. And once you get into that where it's kind of intuitive, it's so much easier to create a lasting like program for yourself and create a lifestyle of it where there's not so many ups and downs. You can check in with yourself. Okay, I'm going hard today. Okay, I'm going to take it easy today. I'm doing what's best for me and my body, and it just creates such a longer lasting effect when it comes to an exercise routine. So I'm all like the first thing I ask my clients when they come in, like, how you doing? How'd you sleep? What's going on? What's stress level? All that stuff, and then based on that, I'll check in with them, 5, 10 minutes into the workout after the warm up after the first set. And then I'll get a good gauge on whether or not we're going to push it that day or whether we're going to kind of take a step back.
Yeah, very very well said. I think that most people don't realize that like most of your workouts are not going to be amazing. Like they're going to for the most part be like a 6 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10. You feel fine, but like, it wasn't amazing. But then every now and then you're gonna get like oh yeah, like let's fucking let it rip. Like I feel amazing. Like I slept good. I fueled good. Like I had the perfect amount of caffeine at the perfect time. Like I feel amazing. Like let's let it rip. And that's when you're gonna go in there and you're gonna crush that day. And those days are
Hmm.
few and far between. But when you get them, you got to be there to accept that it's going to happen and then capitalize on that because they're not going to come very often. The same way that there's going to be a number of days, again, should be few and far between, where you get in there and you're like, damn, I just don't got it today. And it's like, okay, we do some mobility. Maybe we just walk. Maybe, you lift like 50%, you kind of deload week type of thing. But you got to keep showing up so that when those good days are there, you're ready to give it.
You're ready for it. Yep. This might date me. This might be out of your generation, but not every workout's going to be a rocky workout. But when it happens, you feel like you're on top
Oh,
of the world. That's for
I'm
sure.
not that young. Come on. If you don't know rock and you're listening to this, you're too young. That's actually a real thing. What's it's
Funny.
a little bit more technically then? What do you think about warm ups? How do you set up warm ups? Because I think this is another like way overlooked thing. People just like either ignore it completely and don't understand the purpose and utility of it, or they just like completely bastardize it. So like, give me your thoughts on warm ups.
Yeah, so it first starts with the check-in when they show up. I'm asking how they're doing, how they slept, all that good stuff. If they feel good, our warm-up's probably going to be a little bit shorter than normal, but generally, I'm trying to hit, every joint. The show up fitness, we preach the 10 checkpoints of movement. So ankles, knees, hips, lumbar, thoracic, cervical spine, shoulders, elbows, wrists, and then some breathing. I want to make sure that we're breathing good too and get some good oxygen in and getting the heart rate up. So I mean, if we're feeling good, we're doing maybe a couple push-ups, a couple band rows, maybe some jumping jacks, maybe a couple air squats, maybe a back step lunge, maybe a couple floor bridges, just something that kind of hits all that. Maybe a couple mobility drills for the spine, maybe like some cat cows or some thoracic rotations. We're feeling good. We're getting right into the workout because, we don't want to waste any time. We're trying to hit the weights as soon as possible. If it's something where, we're kind of lackluster that day, then I'm slowing it down a little bit and we're just adding in maybe more mobility that day. Or when we get into the lift, maybe we're lifting a little bit lighter on those first couple sets. So it's all based on how they feel and what they're looking like. I'm always trying to pay attention to how they're moving. But if they're feeling good, it's not that much. It's probably like 5-minute warm up, and then we're hitting the ground running.
And how much of a difference do you think that makes for your clients? Like versus just skipping the warm up, which like most people who are not working out with a trainer, and I train like where I go to work out myself now is at a commercial gym, and it's been very eye opening over the past couple of months because I see people come in there and they're just like load up their working weight on the barbell, like they didn't even tie their shoes, nothing happened, they showed up, and then they're like failing on their first set. I'm like, what did you think was going to happen? Like this is very confusing to me. But I realize that this is where most people lies. It's just like no warm up, just like, oh, whatever your first exercise is, just go do that.
Yeah, I mean that can create a lot of pressure on the joints just because you're not optimizing your movement. I mean, those practice sets kind of activate that mind muscle connection and the neuromuscular communication. So if you don't have that, it's tough because you're not firing all cylinders. I mean, you just go out and try and run a sprint. It's gonna, especially for me, I'm in my 40s. If I just go out and just run as fast as I can, it's gonna look terrible. I'm probably gonna pull a hamstring. I mean, you want to definitely get the blood in the muscles, work on those movement patterns, that mind muscle connection, and scale into it. Because you're not only leaving a lot on the table, because you're probably not going to be able to lift efficiently, but your joints are probably going to feel like crap too, for sure.
Especially if you've dealt with any injuries before. If there's any
Yeah.
part of your body that's like a little sticky or like it's not necessarily injured, but like this shoulder is just kind of like needs a little WD 40 before I get to doing something. Like you can't just be going in there and just like ripping working sets. Like do a little bit
I'd
of a warm
say
up. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I'd say this too. There's the other end of the spectrum too, where I've seen trainers that they will literally spend like 20 minutes on a
Mm-hmm.
foam roller with their client too. And it's like, well, they're paying you for results and they're probably not gonna, they're not gonna get those results if they're spending a third of their time with you on a foam roller. So you have to get them to that point where they're lifting as soon as possible, I guess you could say. And that varies, but you have one side of the spectrum, you're going too fast. Other side of the spectrum, you're just leaving so much on the table because you're wasting time. You've got to find that sweet spot somehow. I think that's where a
Agreed.
little bit of experience comes in.
Yeah, it doesn't have to take very long. And like going back to the beginning of the conversation, doing stuff like just laying on a foam roller rolling out for 15 20 minutes before your workout is like that's very passive, and like that might help actually if you're doing it right before a workout, but that's not really
Mhm.
changing any tissues and you don't need that much time to warm up. That might be something that you do on a day where you just don't have it and you just want to stretch and just feel something. You want to do that, like fine, nothing wrong with it. But that shouldn't be your normal like warm up routine. Like you said, a
Mhm.
quick kind of few set of exercises that just hitting the whole body, moving you through some space, actually genuinely like literally warming up your body as in just heating up the tissues by moving. And it should take like 5 to 7 minutes. Like
Mhm.
that's plenty for most people. Then you get into your first working set of whatever it is that you're doing that day, do it a little bit lighter, and then you should be ready to go. And then obviously if you're lifting heavier, you might need more. If you're setting to squat 500 pounds, like you're not just squatting the bar and then 500. Like you'll work up to it. I didn't have warm up sets up there,
Yeah.
but so it matters more and will be longer if you're lifting significantly heavier.
Yeah.
But for
You
most
got to
people, like
scale it.
one warm up set is probably fine.
Yeah. And honestly, I like the analogy of like, just think of your car. Like if you start your car and you just hit it, you get to work like right off the bat. I mean, that's going to cause some wear and tear. Whereas if you warm up your car for about 5 minutes and then take off, I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if people who live in cold places, like I mean, it doesn't get, I don't think it gets as cold where you are as it does here in Toronto, and certainly not in like legitimate cold places like Edmonton or what I'd call real Canada. But but yeah, you gotta warm up the car, otherwise it's just asking for trouble, and it's not any different with your body. You're like your body's a machine,
Hmm.
it needs to be warmed up, but it doesn't need to take up your whole workout, and it shouldn't. And it will just improve your performance. That's the thing. Maybe that's the selling point for people is
Yeah.
like take 5 minutes, do it like a decent warm up. It's going to improve your performance. Never mind all the other stuff. If that's not things you care about, it'll just make your workout better.
Yeah. Even if you're Gen Pop, you want to focus on your performance.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the main thing you want to focus on, right? Is like you want to be getting better in the gym. You didn't come to the gym to just stay stay the same, right? And unless you've been in it for like 40 years and you're just like, hey, yeah, I just want to move and feel good. Chances are
Hmm.
you went to the gym because you wanted to get better, right?
Exactly.
Good stuff, man. We didn't talk about a ton of anatomy, and I don't think we need to. But is there any like anatomy stuff that you did want to talk about today, or any things that you think that like, hey, most people don't know this, but they should, and it would help them, and like most people, as in like the client type people, not other trainers.
Yeah, I think for the client, if you're doing it yourself, it's probably a good motor practice just to learn a little, just the basics. Maybe like what what does what, um, based on what you're doing. Maybe like the movement patterns. I don't think that if you have a trainer, I don't think that you need to know it because a lot of people who pay for that, they just want the accountability. They want to be told what to do. So as long as you have a good trainer that understands that, it's not as big of a deal. Um, but really, I just see anatomy as such an important factor for trainers because, like I said, you can take care of the client. You can network with those physical therapists. You can find out if you trust them and their craft and what they do and their if they have testimonials of helping people, and it just helps your business because if you aren't able to, turn this passion that you have for fitness into career by making money, then you're not. I mean, it's gonna fall flat. You're gonna have to go find another job. You're gonna have to go become a bartender or something like that, because you got to make the money in order to help more people. And I think it's so important to understand your anatomy so that you can network with medical professionals. And kind of what we're hoping for at Show Up Fitness is we can create that like symbiotic relationship between like doctors and between trainers and between physical therapists, so we can help people, help general population, and get them to where they're feeling better and moving better because I mean the statistics are pretty eye opening when you see how many people are in pain and how people are struggling with the obesity and stuff like that. So it's all about the care of the client, and I think that sometimes therapists and trainers they have kind of like a mindset where it's like me versus you, but I think that's completely off base. I think it needs to be more symbiotic where I'm helping you, you're helping me, and anatomy is kind of that foundation I think for trainers to understand that. But as far as like just people in the gym, I don't think it's super important. I think it just depends on if you're interested in something like that.
Yeah,
To each
yeah,
their
fair
own.
enough. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think anatomy is an underrated important skill for training. It sounds obvious it sounds silly to say it because like we're working on the body. Like you should know the things in the body. Like that is like pretty obvious to lay it out that way. But most people have no idea. And then you wonder why, clients are not getting results, or you don't know how to choose exercises, or when you're throwing a curveball like, oh hey, I can't like I don't know, I can't do this movement today because I fell and whatever. Then you're like, but legs equals this. It's like, okay, well, there's other ways to do it if you understand the anatomy and how to set things up. So,
Hmm.
agreed. And I agree for regular people too. I mean, you don't need to know this, but just kind of like pay attention and then just like think about things and like don't be afraid to ask critical questions, like the RDL with the toes elevated thing. Like, ask questions why that would work if you see things like this. Like, and if the answer doesn't sound mean, people can probably bullshit pretty good, but if the answer doesn't seem to make sense, and Google and ChatGPT and Grok and whatever is your friend, uh, use those resources to like, hey, does this thing make sense? Is this anatomically sound, or is this just like some nonsense? Because a lot of times it is. Like, stick to the basics. You're going to be good.
And I think that anatomy has so much to tie in with pain, because if you can understand the anatomy, you can understand maybe where the pain's coming from. And pain is something that people deal with all the time, and it could be multiple different factors, right? So
Yeah.
just being able to understand, like, maybe this isn't an injury, maybe it's just a signal telling me this. So if I understand that maybe it's my front delt that's hurting, maybe I need to activate, posterior delt a little bit more, or whatever it is, rotator cuff drills that you need to do. Getting out of pain is a big one for people. And I think that we've been kind of told as a society, if you're in pain, just to shut it all down. Shut it all down.
Mm-hmm.
We'll wait. But that's just such a terrible way to approach it, and just hope that it's going to get better. You know what I mean? So I think understanding that anatomy, if you can get into the weeds and learn a little bit about anatomy, it might help you get into some movements that will get you out of pain. And if you get out of pain once and you have the confidence that you can get out of pain, it's just going to set yourself up so much for the future. Because it's sad when I see people that, like, I'm in pain. I'm just gonna ride it out and see what happens. Like, all right, well, I mean, I want to try and help you out, but good luck with that, because you might be waiting for a long time.
Yeah, it's setting them up for a disaster down the road, because it's only going to lead to more injuries, different injuries, or just the same injury never healing. And then, back to the beginning of your stories, like, you're in pain for a number of years. Like, is this just what my life is like now? Is this, and
It's what
then
it
we
is.
get into the whole like pain pills thing, and that's a whole other, ballpark. But you don't want that to become normal, like a sprained ankle, a little pinched shoulder, or something like that. That's not a death sentence. Like, you don't need to just deal with that for the rest of your life. It doesn't need to cause you pain. Like, there are ways to get out of it. You've just got to keep searching for answers. And you can't rely necessarily always on other people. You have to be the center of your own healthcare and your own well-being, because like, if you don't find good people to help you, then you're never going to get better. So you've got to keep asking questions and keep pushing until you get like the actual relief that you want, and so you can be pain free.
Yep. Yep. I agree 100%. It's tough too. I feel for the consumer, because there is a lot
Mm-hmm.
out there as far as like, this will work, or do this one exercise and it's going to cure this. And we know as trainers that it's not quite that easy. So yeah, asking the questions and asking multiple sources is going to help you lead down the road, but try and be pro movement the best you can.
Yeah, agreed, man. Listen, this was really good stuff for people to hear and to be able to put into action. Where can people find you and learn more about all the stuff that you've got going on?
Yeah, so right now I'm posting a little bit on Instagram. It's just at my handle is Tyrex Training, Tyrex Training. And if you're a new trainer and you want to get into a program, check out Show Up Fitness at showupfitness.com. Also, Show Up Fitness CPT on Instagram and also TikTok, I believe. Uh, but yeah, if you ever want to reach out, holler. I'd love to talk this stuff. If you want to talk anatomy, hit me up and we'll chat about it. We'll talk rotator cuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing everything. I'll put the links to both your own content, your own stuff, and to Show Up Fitness in the show notes, so it's easy for people to find. But please, guys, go follow Tyson, go follow Show Up Fitness, especially if you're a new trainer, and get yourself some help. Tyson, is there any last message that you want to leave the people with here in closing?
No, like we like to say here at Show Up Fitness, keep showing up, keep doing it.
Love it. Very
Thanks, Daniel.
simple, very direct. Thank you very much, Tyson, as well. Thank you guys all for listening. Appreciate each and every one of you as always. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you're leaving 5-star reviews, comments, shares, subscribes, all those good things. Helps the show grow. And that's that. Go outside. Be a good person. See you soon.